Well, hello everyone. This is our first podcast of the year. Jessamine, welcome. How have things been for you as you've started off the new year?
Hi, Meg. I don't think I could be less prepared for 2022. There's really no feeling like starting off the new year this way without really having a true break.
Mm,
And like I think just like not getting out of the house all that much over the break and just kind of
hmm
looking at the same four walls, it feels like a blur. The break was a blur. We had some highlights though. We did get some family time and we had a couple of fires in the backyard, which was cool, like little
Oh, good,
cookouts.
good fires, like
Yeah,
like
not like,
bonfires, I
well, we
guess.
did set fire to the lawn one time, but we learned our lesson very quickly, which is keep the burning the wood in the little chimney thing. And yeah, and don't try to burn the Christmas tree. That was our mistake because we were burning last
Oh,
year's Christmas tree. So that got out of hand. That was over Thanksgiving, but for December, we did manage to keep the fire in the little cooker or whatever and enjoy ourselves. So that was a highlight. But otherwise, we really just stayed home a lot. It
nice.
was pretty mellow. What about you guys?
Um, about the same. I do feel really fortunate that I did get to see my family. I'm curious though, like this week, did you have a lot of people out at work?
I was hoping for a quiet week and I did not get it. So people are back in action for some reason. I was really hoping that it would be a slow time and people would be sort of half awake, but
Mhm.
everybody's raring to go. I guess people just needed some stimulation.
Yeah, yeah. I just
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard about a lot of people coming coming down with cases
Oh,
and like
yes. Yes.
taking like this week off, and it made me wonder, you know how they say that like during March Madness, the basketball tournament, like nobody works, like productivity goes down by like some like, in crazy percent. I was like, I wonder what things like these spikes, these COVID spikes are doing to
Oh,
like
that is
work
so
productivity, and
true.
if it rivals at all March Madness, who knows?
That is a wonderful data question. People have been getting sick. I've definitely heard a lot about that. And but it's always low on details, right? Because, you can't really pry. Someone's just out of office. So you just kind of think, okay, they're probably out with COVID and we'll see you when I see you, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely affected people I know for sure. And I've heard of people getting it multiple times too, like not just once and
Mhm.
done, but three times.
Mm.
So yeah. So this is a
Like
weird time. It's very
weird
strange
time.
because like you said, people are dropping like flies and people want to work really hard. Like that is the vibe. It's like, let's get down to business. Let's get to work.
Mm.
I think it's a distraction.
Yeah, keep busy, try to
Hmm.
try to feel satisfaction and productivity in at least some part of our lives.
Hmm. Exactly. Well, for today's episode, guys, we have a couple of hot topics about the new year and trends in UX design. Our quick standard disclaimer before we get into it is that our program doesn't disclose any confidential information about any company or employee. This is for entertainment purposes only. And you are listening to Surviving UX, which is a podcast about surviving the challenges of your career in UX design.
Yeah, and I'm super excited to be kicking off our new year, our new season of the podcast. And one thing before we leave, kind of like family and the holidays and that kind of topic. But one question that came to mind for me as I was, like I said, lucky enough to spend some time with my family, is a question for you, which is, so like I know you have kids, and like my question is, if we fast forward 10, 15 years in the future, when they are starting to kind of get more into like what they might be interested in doing for a career, what would you say to them if they wanted to go into UX, knowing what you know now and how your career has been? what would you say?
So I've thought a lot about this actually because my daughter loves to draw, she loves to color, she loves art. Like a lot of kids, they love art
Hmm.
and we do have conversations sometimes about like it just comes up like we'll be reading a story and I'll be like, this is italics. When you see a word in italics, it's emphasized. And so we were reading a book called Elephant and Piggy the other day. And
Love Elephant and
um
Piggy.
yeah, and we saw italic word and she's like, what's that? So we talked about italics and then we had another conversation that same week about contrast. We were talking about colors with clothes, like just getting dressed. And
Mm.
she asked like a really random question, like, why does white tights and black shoes look good together? And I was like, because it has contrast. I was like, if you were wearing black tights and black shoes or white tights and white shoes, it wouldn't look as good because it would blend together and it has contrast. So that's why it looks good. And so we were like talking about contrast. And I was like, God, this is weird, like I can't believe I'm talking about this with a 6-year-old, but I mean, she got it, she understood. And so I think about that stuff and I'm like, I feel like with her education, I mean, she's in kindergarten. I'm sort of like, I don't know what jobs are going to be there for her when she enters the job market in,
Hmm.
10 plus years. Like, I don't know what kind of job she'll be getting. And I definitely feel like when I was a kid, there was so much emphasis on like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you need to think about these careers and make a decision and, get yourself on the path. And I just was like, okay. And I just feel like careers, they aren't like straight roads. I mean, some careers are, but
Mm.
UX is one of those careers where like people come in from all backgrounds and a lot of people come in as like a second or a third career or a side career. So I feel like if she was like, yeah, I want to do UX design, I'd be like, cool. And also, try to study some hard tech as well. Like, I
Hmm.
think that's one of the things that I was like, well, I'm good at art, so I should just do art. But I do feel like I've been reflecting on this and I'm like, I feel like I do have some educational gaps because I focus so much on design and art. And I wish I had more like a well-rounded background sometimes. Like I wish I'd taken more business classes or I wish I'd taken more
Hmm.
computer classes. And I feel like that is something like inside telling me that it might be time to explore, to do some more exploration because with education stuff, like I feel like a lot of times you sort of assume like one and done. And education is so expensive, with student debt and the cost
Hmm.
of like tuition that like you really can only afford to get one degree and two if you're lucky. But you kind of have to like go all in. And then if your degree doesn't pay off, it's not like you can just go get another one. It's not, it's a gamble. So I do feel like sometimes I wish I had more of like a technical background or a business background so I could have those conversations because they come up so frequently
Hmm.
with our career. You're not just talking shop all the time, you're talking about the business and what's good for the customer, what's good for the business. And if you can't have those kind of conversations, then you're sort of like stuck on the sidelines. And I just think like for her, I don't want her to be like, I think that my message to her will be like, don't pigeonhole yourself.
Hmm.
If you're interested in something, check it out. If you're interested in something else, check it out. Don't categorize yourself as, well, I'm an art person. I'm a design person. So I won't do that. I won't touch that. Because I think that's a mistake I feel like I've made. And I want to break out of it. I want to break out of that constraint. What about you?
I think similarly, perhaps I was mostly surrounded by people with kind of like more traditional um, jobs where like not traditional, but like things that have been around for a while. Like lawyers um, have been around for a while and will continue to be, um, as opposed to like folks who were kind of in slightly more cutting edge or brand new professions. I don't think I knew anybody growing up who worked in technology, maybe like a friend of my parents, like one
Oh, hell
person.
no.
Um,
I never
yeah.
heard the word engineering until I was 18 years old. And I asked a
Um,
girl in my block, well, what do you want to study when you go to college? And she's like, I want to be an engineer. And I remember thinking, what the hell is that? And I didn't even ask her. I had no idea. So like,
that's great for her in the
yeah,
in that time period.
I know.
All the challenges to being a woman engineer in the business. But yeah, I think it'll be totally different when you have this much more established profession, and that's a great segue into kind of talking a little bit about one of our topics today, about the influx of folks coming into the profession, and also kind of what that means for people who don't want to stick around um, their their current roles, or they want to do more, they want to kind of like branch out. But I don't know if I would necessarily like say like, no, never do this, because it has been like very fulfilling in some
Yeah.
ways. But it is kind of one of those things where it just doesn't feel like you can really know what it's going to be like or in 10 to 15 years, which then makes me reflect back on people who, when I was little, like what you're saying is like
Mm-hmm.
this, all this focus, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And like, like if you said something and somebody was like, oh no, you don't want to do that, like that job's terrible, or something, or
Mm-hmm.
that job's really hard, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like, how would they have known what it would have been like in 10, 15 years? So anyway,
Yeah.
I think, keeping your options open is a good one. But it's a great segue into kind of one of the topics we wanted to talk about today as a trend in UX, is both, the this concept of the great, what we've probably, lots of us have heard of, is called the great resignation this year. People, uh, moving on from their particular roles in their careers, and either finding something similar at a new company, or taking time off, or finding something new and more meaningful. But then also this just like massive influx of new UX folks as well to the
Mm-hmm.
profession, and kind of what
Yeah.
that means. And like one statistic that I read that I thought was like very interesting was, that according to hired.com, there's a 289% increase in interest in UX roles in 2000. That's
Wow.
from 2020, but
That's
so you can,
incredible. That's
right? Yeah.
incredible. I
So
mean, I
how are
think
you experiencing this?
so. I think this is interesting because one of the things that you see now when you look at, candidates is you see people coming out of boot camps, or you see people coming out of certificate programs or things like that, and they're transitioning into UX from other fields because whatever they studied, like we were just talking about in college, hey, surprise, there isn't as much demand for that field. And so you end up, doing this where there is so much demand, and so many skills can be parlayed into a UX career. If you're good at,
Mhm.
art and design, great. If you're good at interviewing and talking to people, great. If you're quiet and shy and you just want to push pixels all day, great. Like all those designers can be successful. And I think that's why, like, and if you're good at numbers and like you like analytics or data or metrics, good. There's a need for you
Mhm.
there too. Like that guest we had on a couple weeks ago who was doing, analytical research and stuff like that, like quantitative research, like that's a need. So there is such a wide range of what you can bring to the table as a UXer and sort of hit the ground running. And the other thing too, I think that's happening is the tools that are being used are somewhat maybe getting easier to use and not as expensive. I mean, once upon a time, yeah, if you wanted to get into some design software, you're looking at, hundreds or a grand of an investment. And that's going to keep a lot of people away from learning those tools because you need to spend hours in those tools to get comfortable. Now you can get a free trial. You can, maybe pay like a quick monthly subscription fee or get a low cost, so the tools are more accessible too. So I feel like a lot of these skills are going to become table stakes. Like, can you do some mock-ups? Can you do some lightweight user research? Okay, cool. Like that's table stakes. Like what more do you have? And
Hmm.
so I think that with all these people kind of coming in and being like, yeah, I can do this. It's no big deal. A couple clicks, a quick prototype, a couple wireframes, no bigs. These aren't magical skills anymore. So like, where do you differentiate yourself
Do
from
you
the
think
pack?
that the solution is more specialization for an individual to choose like more specialization, or to try to be really good at everything?
Ooh, I mean, I think that if it depends, if you're on a big team and you're one of 15 other designers on your team, yeah, you better come up with something that you can do better than the rest. And, maybe diving into your domain. To me, that's the place where you can really distinguish yourself, is because you have to learn the UX and then you have to learn your domain. So if you're doing, insurance or medical or whatever,
Hmm.
finance stuff, that domain knowledge is going to be your second key to success, because
Hmm.
anybody can push pixels, but do you know the difference between, this kind of insurance and that kind of insurance and what that
Hmm.
persona is all about? That's what's gonna, I think, help you like push ahead and like distinguish yourself of somebody who can just breeze in and like put some mocks together and has to get an answer, from somebody else on which way to make this decision or that decision. They can't make a decision on their own. So I think that's what people are going to find. But I think it's, honestly, I think it's good. I mean, if you think about it, having more people being able to participate in tech is good, because I feel like tech has always been one of those fields where it's just too, I don't know, like the walls are just too high for a
Hmm.
lot of people.
Hmm.
And I think this means that like more people are going to be able to get in those doors, and it's going to change things up, and it's going to change the voices in the room. If you're talking to somebody who hasn't been beat down by, by project after project, year after year, and they're coming in fresh and they've got ideas, it's like, whoa, breath of fresh air. So I think it could be really good for all of us.
Any downsides?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't have any off the top of my head. What about you?
Well, I do think this kind of like concept of turnover or people coming in and out, can put stress on your organizational goals, cohesion, like like with your team or with your stakeholders, um, trying to move the product or whatever it is that you're producing towards, some common goal. If there's a lot of kind of temporary investment with UX, or with
Oh, yeah.
particular folks, or you're seeing high turnover from full-time folks, I think that can definitely be, um, can definitely detract from where you're trying to head. And then I think the other one, which you really hit on, is like sometimes domain knowledge. We've talked about this before too. So, but sometimes domain knowledge is just really hard to come by.
Mhm.
And I think you make a good point about like the specialization, not so much in like you're specialized in animation, or you're specialized in accessibility, or you're specialized in typography, or color palettes. Like, yes, those are all good. Like maybe having one of those, or one or multiple, probably multiple of those skills or interests, like super super good to have, makes you interesting, and like can have you come in and like teach other people and like lend a hand where maybe there's
Mhm.
some deficits with other folks. um, but perhaps, as you said, specialization is a lot more about being specialized in your domain, knowing your users, knowing the challenges they face, understanding the systems, and understanding like not just the human systems, but also the technology systems that you're working in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah. I
yeah.
feel like half the time with design or with UX, it's like knowing when to say, this isn't good enough, or this is good enough. Like that's basically UX design in a nutshell. It's like you're constantly in this game of like, this sucks or this is fine. Like recently I was having a conversation with someone and they're like, well, here's the design and blah, blah, blah. We're looking it over. And I hear the classic line, well, our users know what this is. They understand these terms. They know what all this is. And I'm just like, come on, don't blow that much smoke up my ass. Nobody knows what all this stuff is. I mean, like seriously, people don't know shit and they don't have time to look it up. So do them a favor and put something together that like anybody could look at and understand, that you don't have to be an expert. And it's like that alone, that type of conversation is what UX design is. That is it, and I think having people coming in who are less maybe experts,
Mhm.
I think it's going to be good for tech in general, because they're going to be like, huh, what is all this? What is this complex, weird crap? I don't understand this. And that's what everybody needs to hear all the time, just in general. So why don't we move on to our next topic? Well, let's talk about some of these UI trends that we've been hearing so much about. So UI visuals for 2022. Meg, you've been doing a little bit of reading on this topic. So what have you learned?
Yeah. So some of the tried and true stuff keeps coming back up, or seems to be coming up uh, as it has recently, like cleaner interfaces and minimalist design and things like that. Two new ones, well, two new-ish ones to me, for that I saw in some articles, were kind of like a resurgence of brutalism, which I thought was super interesting, because I associate that with like just like the most like horrific architecture period, and maybe not
Mhm.
horrific, but
Large
just like,
concrete buildings, big
yeah, just like,
gray
why did we
monoliths,
do any of that?
windowless.
Um,
Yes. How does that
uh,
look in UI though? Like I'm trying to visualize what a brutalist UI design would look like. Like just gray.
I think it's a lot, yeah, a lot of gray, a lot of angles, a lot of like a lot of lack of uh flourish and detail, and
Okay.
things things
I feel
along
like
those
one
lines.
trend I will be glad to see the backside of is illustration that looks like people are swollen and they're blue. Like it's cute. Like, don't get me wrong, I like it. And I liked it the first few times I saw it, but now I feel like it's everywhere. It's
Mhm.
like, like it's this trend of like, hey, animation for the internet should look like large, oversized, curvy people,
Mhm.
touching plants or touching cats or whatever. And it just is like, can we come up with anything else?
Yeah,
Like, come on. I don't know.
I think
I'll
I'm
be,
guilty. I'm guilty of that. I think I've drawn one that has a cat in it
I'm
for
sure I
sure.
have too. But
Um,
yeah,
well, what do
brutalism,
you?
that's super interesting.
There's the other one. The other one that came up that I thought was interesting was claymorphism, which is like uh more around like in terms of like the visualizations and illustrations of like people being a little bit more like cartoony and three-dimensional,
Mhm.
and that kind of a thing. Is that
Hmm.
like what you're talking about wanting to see go, or are
Yes, that
you
is what I
okay?
want to see go. I mean, come on. It's been so done, and it's weird that you see it everywhere. Like every tech company is like, hey, we're gonna like humanize this interface by having a picture of a large blue lady floating through the air. Like
Just
it
yeah.
has no, and it never has anything to do. It's sort of like stock photography. You know how stock photography for a long time it was like the smiling lady eating the salad, or the serious people, gathered around a computer. And then stock photography sort of has like moved away from that to try to have more like real people. Like I'll never forget the day when I went to look at, some stock photography for sale for something, and they had a woman, and she was smiling and she had messy hair. And it was some new like hot, series of photographs that they had put together as like women, career women that don't look like models from Eastern Europe. Like it was real women. And I was just like, I'm in love with this picture of this woman with messy hair. And I used that picture so many times for projects, like whenever I could, because I was just like, this is so great to see a woman who's slightly disheveled, totally looks like you could pass her in the hallway on your way to get a cup of coffee. Like, looks like she's bright and chipper and ready to go, but doesn't look like she's modeling. Like it was such a
Mhm.
refreshing thing. And to me, like that realism, it's so appealing to me.
Mm. Well, maybe that will be a trend for 2023 realism.
Everyone's 20
Um,
pounds heavier in sweatpants, hunched over a laptop. That's what I want to see.
I I feel when I see these like more cutesy and um like kind of childlike designs. I think because I have for a while worked more in like B2B and enterprise spaces. I'm like, is that appropriate for what we're trying to convey? And there's one in particular that comes to mind
Mhm.
of a company that uses this style very significantly and or broadly amongst their collateral. And when I see their commercials and when I look at their UI, I'm just like, this doesn't fit for me. It just
Mhm.
seems too cutesy and it just
Yeah.
seems too like kid-like. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but like I'm not using this tool to have fun. Like
Right.
I'm not
Right.
playing Candy Crush or Crazy
It's the wrong
Cupcakes.
tone.
Like
It's the wrong tone.
it's
And you know
yeah.
what? That's the thing, is like someone who's really good at understanding visuals, really knowing visuals, and can read the tone of an image or a photograph or an illustration, who has some sort of like art education or visual background, is going to pick up on that shit and not ship it. But someone who's just like, hey, this looks good, slap it in, they don't know,
Mhm.
they don't think twice about it. Like they're the ones making those kinds of decisions. And then everyone's looking at this and thinking, huh, this is really cutesy. Okay, okay. I guess we're talking about like, cancer treatments, but this person is, smiling and has socks on their head or whatever, you're just like,
Yeah.
this doesn't feel right.
If I see one more like illustration like that in my health insurance portal where I'm only going because I'm aggravated
Oh,
as all get out, like
yeah,
I'm just gonna
yeah.
like, yeah, no, these illustrations don't do it for me.
They're meant to
um
play on your emotions for sure. Like they're meant to tap into that emotion. I recently just got something from my mortgage lender, and it had like a couple with like a happy baby, and like grandma's coming in the door. And I'm like, what the hell, man? Like you're talking about my mortgage payment. Like don't bring my
yeah,
family
i
into
don't
this
i
right
don't need to
now.
see that on my amortization schedule, thanks. It's already
Right.
it's already
Like
messed up
I
enough.
I know, yeah, it's too much, too much. But
Well,
why
one
don't
oh
we do this? Oh, You
See,
tell me
one
what
more
you
I
got.
wanted to bring up, which has nothing to do with visual designs, but one thing I read that I thought was interesting was a resurgence, maybe not a resurgence, but a more swing back towards native desktop apps, which I haven't heard of in a long time. And personally, I have worked mostly in web for the majority of my career. So I don't know a lot about desktop apps and how to design for them. And I thought that was super interesting to see that pop up on one of the trends lists that I read as well.
I cannot tell you how much this news fills me with joy
Well, who
because
knows if it's reputable, but
I hope it is. And I hope someone out there wants to hire designers who are really skilled at desktop design because I just think this is beautiful and wonderful. Because I think with desktop, you can't fuck around, there's constraints. And I feel like
Mhm,
with the web, people kind of are like, well, anything goes, and I don't know what I'm doing, and this doesn't matter. But with
mhm,
desktop, you kind of can't get away with that crap. It has to conform somewhat to the way that the system works, and you've got to have keyboard shortcuts, and you've got to have popovers, and you've got to have all these things to make it work, and you have standard appearances for things. And I like that. I think
mhm,
people get it, and they don't, it's very task oriented, it's focused on what their goals are. You can't get away with like, here's something splashy to distract you from what you're trying to do. Like
mhm,
I love like the smartness that goes into authoring tools, like tools for writing, tools for designing, tools for drawing, tools where you're crunching numbers and you're sitting in front of it for 8 hours a day, because those are the tools where usability is king or queen. And you're optimizing for work, you're optimizing for, I'm getting this done as fast as I can, as easy as I can, I'm doing this over and over, I'm hitting this button, or I'm doing this process a million times, there's got to be a shortcut. And those optimizations, those are like the most beautiful thing that makes users love your product.
mhm,
And I feel like desktop is where those things are, you find those gems the most, because with websites, you're shopping, you're browsing, whatever, you're kind of clicking around, but it's not that deep interaction. And so you can get away with a lot of, design flaws or extra clicks or lazy design because it's not as high stakes. But with these types of softwares, like they have to be well tooled.
mhm. Yeah, for me, it's like I feel like being a person who's been interested in designing and developing web apps for as long as I have been, like I've never had a problem kind of feeling like second to native, how sexy native mobile apps have kind of like taken center stage, or at least that's how I've always felt, is like the native mobile stuff is always just kind of like the what the hip kids are doing.
You're right.
So I've never felt like that, like having taken a back seat, or have had any problems taking a back seat to that. But then I never really thought like, oh, but my stuff like takes a back seat to like native desktop apps. Surely not. No, like web apps are where it's at. That's the future. So this kind of puts a spin on it that I haven't been thinking about quite as much. I think there's still plenty of room for all of these web experiences that
Mm-hmm.
A exist today, and B that will continue to need to be built out. So I don't think there's any like reason to like worry, but it is a new um like I think it is, if this is true and there is a shift more towards the native desktop apps, I think it like you said, it comes from a place of like needing higher performance, needing more dedicated space and time and focus within the particular tool that you're using. And so yeah, I'm super interesting to kind of super interested to see like where that goes, and if that does kind of maybe push the web stuff, which I think has kind of gotten more of a spotlight from a desktop perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of lower on the list. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting. It'll be super interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that in terms of time for our episode today, we could quickly jump into our one listener question that we have. And
Yes. All
this
right.
listener question is about people who are moving on. So this kind of goes back to our topic around the Great Resignation. And this person says, I feel sad to see so many nice people leave. I can't help but wonder if I should move on too. I spent a lot of energy getting to know my coworkers, and I feel like I'm losing friends. It's hard to see good people go, and sometimes I wonder what I am doing here. So let's take the last, 2 or 3 minutes of our episode here and hear your thoughts on that. Any advice, Jessamine?
So I think that this is a beautiful thing in a lot of ways, because if someone leaves and moves on and you say goodbye and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm really going to miss that person, that means that you guys actually did have a connection and you were able to like form some sort of a bond over work. And these days, with our separation and everyone being so isolated, being able to connect with somebody is really special and really valuable. And I think that being sad about that is totally okay. Um, so I think, just honoring that you had a friend and then that friend's moving on, and new friends will come, new people will come. But yeah. What about you, Meg?
I think that one thing that makes this particularly hard is that when you are job searching, or if you're at a company that's going to go through some sort of massive organizational change, a lot of times these moves and these departures are not known to the people that stick around. So, so a person who might be job searching for a while, and they've had this time to get used to these ideas around like moving on and saying goodbye. But by the time they tell you, the person sticking around, it's brand new information and they could be gone in, 2 weeks or less. And that's just kind of like a really tough transition. And if you are experiencing this with multiple people in a short period of time, it can become extremely exhausting. I know people for whom, after a while, they just express to me, I can't do another goodbye party. I just can't.
Yeah.
Like I can't fill out another board of like goodbye notes. I can't have a little like goodbye, Zoom call or whatever. Like I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And so
Fair.
so I think the fatigue and just the kind of like the fact that the people that stick around don't get to have any sort of forewarning and I mean there's really no way to
Yes.
change that, is just a big factor. So my recommendation is give yourself some time. You haven't had as much time as the other person, or even in the case of a of a massive maybe not even massive, but in a situation where the company is letting people go, the organization and maybe the bosses or the higher up folks had that information longer than you did. You're always going to be the one that doesn't have well, unless you're a manager and high up in the organization. But for the most part, we're talking to people like us who are the last to get the information. So give yourself some time, realize that you didn't have it when everyone else did, and everybody takes the amount of time they're going to take to grieve and to kind of adjust to a new reality. So that would be my advice.
And the best thing about having a work friendship where one person has moved on is that you get to gossip with them endlessly about how things are back at the office.
Yes.
So something to look forward to.
Yes, definitely. Well, that brings us to the end of our first episode of this new season. We hope to see you folks back here again soon. We have some more guests this coming season, and some more great topics, more great listener questions. If you ever have a question for us, please do contact us at survivingux@gmail.com. And thank you, Jessamine, for all your great insights today, and hope we'll see you folks next time.
Thanks, Meg. Bye-bye.
Bye. Surviving UX is edited by me, Meg Kramer. Our theme music is, among other things, the on-hold music for Cisco phones. It's called Opus Number 1 by Tim Carlton and Derek Deal. Thanks to my co-host, Jessamine Edwards, for joining me to kick off season number 2. And thank you for listening. Hang in there until next time.